Live again. Want to talk about an interesting topic today. Motivation is a function of expectation. But before I do that, I want to keep inviting you to go to salesworld.mv. The MB stands for Metaverse. It is the first sales conference in the Metaverse. You have to check it out. By the way, free access 24/7. So go check out salesworld.mv Metaverse. It's going to blow your mind. We got about 20 plus speakers, experts, practitioners in the world of selling. So this is all about a sales kickoff. So if you want to get the year started right, check out salesworld.mv. Now, speaking of, let me go erase this. Speaking of actually getting, sorry about that. Speaking of getting the year started out correctly, let me erase this first. Let me just go knock that out. So let's talk about getting our mind in the game, right? Just getting going, whether it's the new year or the new quarter, doesn't matter. How do we sell more effectively? So this morning, I got up. I usually get up early. And I'm usually about 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'm up, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I started thinking about motivation. Like, I don't know why, but I was just like kind of ruminating about motivation. And then this thought hit me. The thought hit me, right? That motivation is equal or is a function of expectation. In other words, motivation and expectations are inextricably linked. So what does that mean? So I got some notes here, so I'll have to refer to them because I want to talk about why sometimes we lose motivation, but sometimes we don't understand why we're not motivated. I think I figured it out. When you set out to do anything, there is an expectation, right? And that expectation, and just bear with me, we have an expectation, right? And here's how the expectations work. If I put in time, money, or effort, then I expect something. That's the expectation, right? If I put in the time, if I put in the money, if I put in the effort, I expectation to get something out. And when I don't get that expectation, motivation goes down. You see why they're tied together. But that begs the question. Here's where it gets interesting. Where do those expectations come from, right? Like, where do they come from? For example, let's do a tangible example. Let's say that you've invested, I don't know, you decided to do a project, right? And you've invested, I'll just say, I don't know, $20,000, right? That's what you've invested, $20,000. Now, whatever the project is, project, question mark, whatever it is, you've invested $20,000. Your expectation somewhere down here is that in 90 days, you should be at some multiple of that, right? That's what the expectation is. You're at a multiple of whatever you thought. Think of any goal that you have, We typically start out with an expectation. So again, I've invested time, money, or effort, or all the above. In this case, I have an idea. I've invested $20,000. Within 90 days, I expect to get an X multiple of that investment, right? Now, when you don't get the X multiple, you're like, I stink. I suck. I'm not good at this. I don't know why I even tried. What? In other words, your motivation goes down. If you're in sales, you say to yourself, look, if I put in this much time and effort into, let's say, networking or prospecting, working the data off the CRM, and I don't get the expectations I want, again, what begins to happen is our expectations, because they're not met, our motivation goes down. So again, both are tied. Now, this begs the bigger question is, but where did you get the 20,000? Like, where did you get the 90 days? And where did you get the X multiple? In other words, where did you get the expectation? Like, where does it come from? Where did that expectation come from? And the fact that if you would ask, I would say, okay, 20,000, that's how much you invested, great. But how did you know? Where did you get the 90 days? Return on investment. And then X multiple, where did you get that? And so let's talk about that. Let's figure out where the expectations are coming from. Now, where am I going with this? If I can figure out where the expectations come from, then I can control that variable. And if I can control the expectation, I can control my motivation. Bear with me. So where did you get that idea that you can invest 20,000, 90 days, you get an X multiple? Maybe, I don't know, you listened to someone else. Someone else told you, hey, This is what will happen. If you invest $20,000 within 90 days, you'll get this much back. Have you ever heard that one before? And so we'll call that's somebody's, guess, right? This should happen, right? The other is maybe, and I'll go to my notes here because I want to get this, is that you just guessed. You think, I think if I do this, I'll get that, okay? Again, yours is just, another, you guess, and you can actually call this one hope, right? Let's call that one hope. You listen to somebody else and you hope it to be true. You listen to yourself, it was just a guess, you thought maybe that's what's going to happen, or maybe you saw others who were doing it, and therefore you thought that you could do it yourself, right? So all of a sudden, there was, again, hope, and maybe sometimes you even lied to yourself that you could do it. Whatever it may be, you set the expectation. Again, when it doesn't go your way, because maybe you set the expectation based on a guess. Maybe you set the expectation based on what other people's results were. Maybe you set the expectation up on what you thought, what you heard, what you learned, and so you set those expectations. And as soon as you set the expectation and you don't hit it, your motivation goes down. I'm getting there. Just bear with me. I'm going somewhere with this. Because we kind of guess, whether it's hope, whether we guess, or whether we lie to ourselves, we set ourselves up for failure, which is why motivation always goes down. So that begs the question, what do? Should you just lower your expectation? Because maybe that's the answer, right? What if we just lower our expectations? Because we know we can hit that. Well, that's one way of looking at it. You can lower your expectation, but I would assume that if you lower your expectation, even if you hit it, your motivation might still be low to continue to do it. So as we're thinking about the new year, as we're thinking about the new quarter, how do we set these goals? How do we set these expectations so we don't get disappointed when we don't hit them? That's the key. How do we set expectations so when we don't hit them, because we created a target, when we don't hit them, we don't get demotivated. So let's rewrite this again. If you're with me, if you believe that motivation is a function of expectation, then I need to control the expectation. But instead of using a target, maybe we can set different types of expectations. Here's what I do. So now I'll give you my secret to staying motivated. Here it is. When I set my expectations, I don't set a target expectation. Let me say that clear. I don't set a target expectation. I don't like doing that. A target expectation is something specific. I like to use ranges. Ranges set different expectations. So for example, if I start a new project, right? I set to myself, where do I want to land? And sometimes I'll set what I'll call dollar ranges. Well, I want to make between, I'll call this the dollar range. I want to make between XX amount to, let's say, XX amount, right? Whatever it may be. In other words, maybe I want to make 10,000 to, let's say, 100,000. I can tighten up the range, but I know that if I set out and I can be somewhere in this range, I'm going to be happy. Notice what's happening here. Because I'm setting up a range, I'm actually widening my expectation gap. Think about this for a second. You're widening the expectation gap. So if I fall anywhere in here, I'm still going to be happy, as opposed to setting a target expectation. Maybe you can use a date range. For example, a date range may be something you're trying to accomplish something. And sometimes we pressure ourselves so much. I want to get it done by this time, right? I got to get this done in 90 days. But maybe you shouldn't do that to yourself. Maybe you say to yourself, you know what? If I can do this within 90 to 180 days, I will kill this. If I want to hit, let's say I'm trying to lose weight. I say, between 90 and 180 days, I want to hit that expectation. Now again, what am I doing? I'm allowing myself some freedom, because all I know is instead of trying to hit one single bullseye, I'm just trying to land within a range. Now remember, motivation is a function of expectation. I can't change reality, but I can change how I look at expectations. In other words, I can create ranges as I go through this. I think I had a third one here. One is different outcomes. That's the third one. I call it the possibility range, right? And I'll give you a very tangible example. I launched Sales World, right? Just launched it. So if you haven't gone to the website, go to the website and jump into the metaverse. Salesworld.mb. That's the website, right? Now, I've set up the possibility of outcome. What's going to happen? I launched this new project, and instead of saying, I want so many visitors, I want so much of this, so much of that, I go, no. I said, here's what I want. Two possibilities. One, people use it, and we'll call it, they'll use it, I'll say, at a moderate range. In other words, we get 40 to 50 people in there a day, right? Which we're hitting, by the way. The other thing that might be is that this becomes a very good place for people to network. And then also, again, that's going to increase the number of users, and maybe I'll get to 200 per day, right? Now, I know I can hit this range, somewhere in this range. I'm already doing it. But because I'm allowing for that range of possibilities, I'm not demotivated. Now, what if I had said right off the bat, I want to get to 200 a day, let's say in this case, right? And I don't hit that 200. I'll keep working towards the 200, but let's say I just can't get to that 200. After a month of trying, I'm going to say, I give up. Do you know what I mean? I just keep, no matter what I try, nothing seems to work. But when I create a range of expectations of where I think the range will be, all of a sudden I know I'm going to land in there. Now my goal is to obviously move it towards this end, just like with regard to money, right? We want to start here, the low side, and move it towards here. But having that mindset by creating a range, forget the target. Forget the target weight, for example. If you're losing weight, forget the target weight. If you're lifting weight, you're trying to hit, bench a certain amount. Again, create a range of where you want to be, a range in terms of dates and possibilities, and then work towards that. Now, mentally, you're going to try to exceed that expectation. But notice how, if you use the range, and I'm repeating myself, your level of motivation stays high because, again, you're in the game, because you know you're going to land within the range. It's just a matter of where. And anything within the range, your brain considers it a success because you're in the range as opposed to just missing. Now, because you're in the range and you're motivated, again, that feeds the expectation, what you want to do, what you do every day. Remember, I say A, B, C, not always B closing. Your attitude will drive your behavior. Your behavior will drive your consequence. Our goal is to make sure that our attitude is always positive. What's your attitude? Well, that's motivation. That's driven by expectation. And if your motivation, your attitude is always positive, and no matter what you do, the behaviors, the motions will always follow. And if you do the behaviors, the activities, guess what? The consequences will be there, which is you win, your sales grow, you lose weight, you bench more, whatever it may be, you're successful, and you're always in the game by using expectation ranges. Don't do targets, always do ranges if you want to stay motivated. On that note, I'll take some questions, man. Let me see, I got Ansley Pierre saying, "Sup, Vic?" What's up, Ansley? How you doing, man? Matt Jope, hey, Victor. Too cool as always. Matt, thank you very much. Leanne Schrader or Schroeder? I think it's Schroeder, right? But I won't assume. Love this topic. I'll save to listen to replay. Have a blessed day. Right back at you. Nothando. Oh, I'm going to get that one right. Nuenya? I'll just say Nuenya. Let me say, hey, Mr. V. I'm stuck on sales. I put effort, my time, but at the end, I don't get what I expect. The question is, what do you think is wrong? When you say, I don't get what I expected, what did you expect? There's let me kind of just highlight this part also. There's this, by the way, if you ever read the book Atomic Habits, hit me with a 1. Hit me with a 1 in Atomic Habits, right? The Atomic Habits book had something interesting. It was an interesting curve about the 1% rule. And it ties into, Nathaniel, this is for you, by the way. It ties into what you're asking about expectations. And over here, they talked about results over time, right? In the book. I think it's James Clear is the author, right? Atomic Habits. And what we expect, Nathaniel, sometimes is a linear function. We expect a linear function. If I put in this much effort over this much time, I should be here. If I put in that much more effort over this much time, I should be here. And what you start seeing is this linear, right? For the amount of time I put in, I expect these things to happen, right? I expect that this is my trajectory. If I put in the time, here are my results. Put in more time, results. More time, results. Whatever it may be. This, by the way, this could be time, it could be money, and it could be effort, right? You do these things. Now, it doesn't work that way. In the book, James Clear said something really interesting, or highlighted something really interesting. Let me go back to this. I shouldn't have erased that, by the way, sorry. Let's go back to this. As opposed to the linear function, which is this, your results over time, Clear said what happens is this whole 1% compounding effect that works slowly. What happens is, and I'll use a different color, let's use the green, right? And so what he said was interesting. He says, you'll start here, right? But you'll put in some time or some efforts and resource and you won't see the results. In fact, you'll be like rumbling right here for a while. You put in more time, more results, you see nothing. It's not linear. He said, but over time, what begins to happen is when it really kicks in, you see this exponential growth, right? Now, what's interesting, he calls this right here, he called it the zone of, I think it was disappointment, if I remember correctly. He called it the zone of disappointment, that right there, because that's where most people give up. They put in a little time, little effort. When they don't see the results, over time they just give up, right? So this is where a lot of people just stop. But it isn't until you get past this point when you start seeing the real results and you start growing your business, right? You start growing your sales. So Nathaniel, the question to you is, are you still right here putting in the time and effort? It's just not working, but you got to be patient. Now you got to make sure you're doing the right thing. So you listen to people like me. There's so many sales experts. Go to Sales World, check out the experts there. You keep learning, you keep absorbing, you keep trying. This is you right here. This is you trying to just kind of get out of this. Another way of looking at it is like a motivational dip. I can get into that if you want. But let me just, I guess, see some folks scrolling here, man. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Matt Joe said, Victor, you didn't pay me to say that. Okay, so Jeffrey Tam, still got the same energy, Victor. Thank you for your amazing content as always. Jeremy, thank you very much, man. Matt Joe, Victor, thanks so much for doing these sessions. Everyone jump in the sales training course with Victor. Thank you very much. Big one, Atomic Habits. I love it. Thomas, any morning tips to get your head right before picking up the phone? Thomas, that's such a great question. Here's what I do. And by the way, you can use this whole expectation thing that I talked about in a very similar way, right? By setting your mindset, your expectation to what you expect to happen that day. The two things. One of the things I do is when I get up early, what I do is I don't touch my computer or any electronics for the first at least half an hour, sometimes even an hour. I literally just sit in the dark. I do. I have my cup of coffee. I have all the lights off and I just sit. And that kind of allows me to not overthink what I'm going to do today, but it kind of lets me sort things out in my head and just kind of enjoy the moment, right? It's for me. I'm asking you to do that. Just kind of take the time, that 30 minutes to kind of just like, you know what, I'm going to chill here, let thoughts run in and out of my head and just enjoy the moment, right? The other thing I do that works for me is there's something called the inoculation effect, Thomas. The inoculation effect is if I tell you what to expect, and when it happens, you won't be surprised. So for example, I said, Thomas, typically on a Tuesday, today's a Thursday, but on a Tuesday, I said, you're not going to get a lot of people picking up the phone or responding to emails if you're doing cold email outreach, right? But just let's say you're calling, you're doing some cold calling, right? I said, what typically happens is the first 10 to 20, typically 20 people are not going to respond. It's after 20 you begin to see these things, as far as conversations, people picking up the phone and maybe having some great conversation. By telling you to expect the first 20 are not going to be good, your brain, when it does happen, when you actually pick up the phone and it does happen, nobody picks up, your brain says, that's to be expected, that's to be expected. It's a way of readjusting your expectation using the same model we're talking about today. And so no matter what I do, when I try to do something and I know it's going to be a difficult task, because that's what holds us back, right? When you talk about motivation, getting the day going, you're trying to build up some momentum. Different strategies. Some people say, call people you already know, build some momentum there. But in my mind, I just try to be zen about it. It says, look, I'm going to make 20 calls today. I'm hoping to get at least 10 on the phone. If I don't, that's cool. Again, I set the expectation. But if I can get one, just 1 out of 20, I'll be happy. And I brought in my range of expectations. I don't know if that helps, but that does help me when it comes to trying to reach out to people. I request things from people. I send out emails. People don't respond sometimes. People ghost me after a while, whatever it may be. But in my mind, I don't let that affect me. And again, that 30 minutes at the beginning of the day resets my mindset. And I think you have to go through that 30 minutes to understand what I'm talking about. And let me know what you think, Thomas. Sorry, that's the best answer I can give you, Matt, because it really all depends. Victor didn't pay me to say that. Okay, cool. Thank you, Matt. Andre White, awesome stuff. I struggle at times with sustained motivations. Ranges instead of target makes sense. It does, Andre. Like I said, it really hits me and it keeps me motivated, especially those days when you're on the low end of that range. Kevin Davidson. That is a cool background you got with the beach in the background, man. Based on your philosophy, which I believe has strong merit, love when people say stuff like that, one needs to spend much more time on researching realistic expectations before beginning most endeavors to ensure you'll stay motivated through it. Kevin, you're so dead on, right? Because these expectations, these ranges that we're setting have to be based in reality somewhere, right? So you're absolutely right. So too often we don't take the time to do the research. And if we do, the question is, are we lying to ourselves sometimes? I think that's where we have to be careful. I think ranges limits the amount of disingenuousness, I guess the amount of lying you can do to yourself. Because by setting a range, you can kind of say, okay, what's the worst I can do? And then what's the best I can do? I was listening to Jordan Peterson. Kevin, you might find this interesting. A while back, and he was on the Joe Rogan show, right? He said something interesting. Joe Rogan was talking about setting goals, right? And, Joe Rogan was all about set a high goal, you'll hit the high goal, right? And Jordan Peterson was like, I don't know if I buy that. I said, let me give you another perspective, he said. He says, I want people to be motivated to create some momentum. He says, what I tell in his clinical, practice, he would tell people to get them going. He says, you need to lower your goals. Lower them so much so that you can just step over them and do it easily. So in other words, put it in a very tangible format. Let's say that you hate reading. I don't like reading. So I get it. Well, can you do 20 pages a day? Nah, that's too much, Victor. Can you do 10 pages? Nah, dude, can you do 1 page a day? Just 1 page. Just read 1 page. And the person goes, of course I can do 1 page. Start there. Do your 1 page. And now you know what typically happens. You realize you can do more than 1 page. Maybe you move up to 2, maybe you move up to 3. But by lowering that expectation of yourself and being able to step over that immediately creates this mental momentum. Anyway, you reminded me of that, thought I'd just share it. Matt, Victor, one day could you do a training or recommend a training on how to do the perfect sales webinar structure? Thanks, appreciate it very much. Made a lot of money from your sales school. Thank you very much. One of the courses in there within the Sales Velocity Academy, it isn't specifically for sales webinars as far as structure, but that hero story course, I think it's a master class in the Sales Velocity Academy, is a good one. So, but yeah, by the way, I hear you. I've acknowledged it. Very cool. My first time on your live show, John, thank you very much. Dealcasters, that's my guy, Chris Stone, who edits all my videos. You got to bend that curve. I love it. Pini Kafri, I think I got that right. Thank you, Victor, from the Holy Land, Israel. Blessings back to you. Been there. It's beautiful. Israel's beautiful. Matt says, bit off topic. Sorry. What's the best response for saying I need to think about it? I know this is likely what they have not seen the value of your offer. Any advice would be amazing. Thanks. By the way, I got a video on I need to think about it. I think I've discovered the ultimate response to let me think about it. So if you go online, you type in let me think about it, Victor Antonio, you'll find it. And what I've done is I show you how to funnel people into making an actual decision. So I'll give you the shorthand version. Someone says let me think about it. I will respond by giving people options. Matt, when someone says, you're the customer, Matt, when someone like you tell me they have to think about it, either for one of two reasons, you're interested but not sure, or you're not interested. Which one is it? Or you can reverse that. You're not interested, or you're interested, but you're not sure. Which one is it? Now, you're forced. Your brain forces you to make a decision. Not interested, or interested, but not sure. Let's say, Matt, you say, no, Victor, I'm interested, but I'm not sure. Perfect. I say, I'm glad you're interested. And a lot of people, when they're not sure, Matt, are usually unsure for one of three reasons. Notice what I'm doing again. I'm funneling you. The first one is you don't see this training, my sales training, as a fit. Is that it? No, Victor, I like what you have. Well, if it is a fit, maybe there's some feature, part two, a feature or functionality. Maybe there's a course I didn't cover that you want. No, I think you have everything I want. Then Matt, if it's a fit, it has every feature you're looking for, then I have to assume that it's a financial issue. So it's always fit, feature, and finance, right? And it's usually when you get to the finances, yeah, it's more than I expected to pay. And then from there, you work out a pricing, do bundling, whatever look at my pricing courses on that. Now, if it is a fit, I have the features, and it's not finance, that it's the fourth F, which I say is the fear. Something in your presentation didn't lower their anxiety or increase their certainty. That's what usually happens. When somebody says, let me think about it, it's usually fear, no trust in what you're saying. So if you covered all the topic, it is a fit, you have the right features, it's not a money thing, the financial piece, then they're afraid of something. Something in your presentation is off and you miss something. And there's still, again, there's high level of anxiety and not enough certainty. Thomas, you're very welcome. Andre White, as a sales manager, could you give me some insight on, hold on a second, I'm covering something with that. Insight on how to apply this logic to multiple salespeople. Oh, that's a good one. I'd have to think about that. Insight on how to apply this logic to multiple salespeople. Are you talking about your sales team? I have to give that some thought, Andre. I don't want to just blather something out. It's a very good question. You've actually stumped me. That's very rare, by the way. But let me think about that because I don't want to give you a cheesy answer. My off-the-cuff answer would be, well, first of all, it would be how would you apply it when you talk about quotas? I would use it. By the way, one way I would use it, I can tell you this one is, I would help set expectations, much like I was talking to Thomas earlier about setting expectations with, the number of calls. Maybe you can talk to salespeople, especially new salespeople that you're onboarding. One way would be to look, I'm not looking for you to hit, 80% of this goal. Here's what I'm looking for. If you can be within the 40 to 50 or 60%, that's the range I'm looking for. Or if you're doing outreach, look, I'm not expecting you to close every call you're on, right? But, if you're doing demos, for example, you have a SaaS product, he says, but here's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for 90%. I'm looking for, 30 to 60% for the first 90 days. If we can do that, if we can work within that range over the next 90 days, that's two ranges, 30 to 60 within the next, 0 to 90 days, that would be great. And then again, you're setting expectations, but you're also giving them the range to work in, and they're going to shoot to try to hit that range. It's a real good question. Kevin Davidson said, it's funny you mentioned Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. I happen to follow both of them very closely as well. Great minds think alike. There you go, man. I got the Rogan piece, yeah. Victor, thank you so much from Africa. Amazing answer. Love going to Africa. My first place was actually Pretoria and Johannesburg. Matt with the wild, cool. Andre, yes, my sales team. That's one thing, but I have to give that some thought. Maybe that's another live broadcast after all this is done. Anyway, on that note, I think I've been on here a little bit, 25 minutes. I expected to go shorter, but hanging out with you guys is kind of cool. Leave me some feedback in the comments, maybe different topics. If you like, I'm trying to keep these formats real short, present content, and then do some Q&A afterwards. If you agree with me, great, put that in the comments. If you disagree with me, great, put that in the comment. Love to hear your feedback. I'm always open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. On that note, I'm out of here, folks. Take care. Have a great day.